a major motion picture about a family haunted by angry spirits, a spooky pool scene filled with human skulls, and a series of tragic early deaths among the cast. For decades, a quiet question has lingered. Did the movie Poltergeist disturb something it shouldn't have? Or is this just a story we tell ourselves to make sense of loss? The curse theory connects a series of cast deaths and strange events to one single film series. The story spreads so quickly because it has everything: the macabre feel of a horror movie, the sadness of real grief, and one memorable rumor about real skeletons being used as props. Before we decide what to believe, let's look at the facts. Dominique Dunn, who played the older sister in the original Poltergeist, was tragically murdered in October 1982, just a few months after the film was released. She was only 22. The person responsible was her ex boyfriend, who was later convicted of voluntary manslaughter. Her death is a central part of the curse story because it was a shocking, real world act of violence that happened so soon after the film's success. Julian Beck, unforgettable as the terrifying Reverend Kane in Poltergeist 2, died in 1895 at age 60 from stomach cancer. He had been ill with the disease during production. This death was seen by many as another piece of evidence for the myth, even though his illness had a clear medical cause. Will Sampson, who also appeared in Poltergeist 2, died in 1897 due to complications following a heart and lung transplant. He was 53. The surgery was rare and extremely high risk. Once again, the curse theory seemed to gain ground, but the circumstances were medically tragic and sadly not unheard of. Heather O'Rourke, the young star of the entire series, died in 1988 at just 12 years old from septic shock caused by a misdiagnosed bowel obstruction. Her sudden passing is the most heartbreaking part of the story and the strongest fuel for the curse idea, as she was the very face of the films. 4 deaths in 6 years. 2 of them were very young. 2 were linked to serious medical conditions. This feels deeply unsettling. But are these deaths truly connected to the movies? Or are they just connected in our minds because of the movies? This is the rumor that seems to stick more than any other: that real human skeletons were used in the original film's pool scene because they looked more realistic and were cheaper than plastic props. Hollywood has a long, uncomfortable history of using medical school skeletons as set dressing. In the early 1980s, this was not unheard of. Various crew accounts over the years suggest that the real anatomical skeletons may have indeed been used as props. Does that prove a curse? Or does it simply mean the film industry cut an ethical corner that later felt truly grotesque when tragedy struck the cast? While we don't have proof of a supernatural cause, the idea of human remains on a movie set gives a horror story the perfect, eerie behind the scene fact it needs to feel real. Our brains are built to find patterns. When a famous child actor dies, it's a fact we remember forever. When other actors from the same film series die from an illness, our minds group all of these facts together. We don't tend to keep track of the thousands of film casts that didn't experience any tragedies. We notice the striking events and forget the everyday ones. Then we call that pattern fate. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Over the course of the 1980s, hundreds of people worked on the 3 Poltergeist films. 4 deaths over 6 years is terrible, but it's not outside the realm of what can happen by chance in a group of this size, especially when one of the deaths was an older actor already facing a serious illness and another was a high-risk surgery. Statistics can't offer comfort to a grieving family, but they can tell us whether a curse is necessary to explain the numbers. And in this case, it isn't. The problem with using a word like curse is that it turns real human grief into a plot device. Dominique Dunn's murder was domestic violence. Heather O'Rourke's death was a medical catastrophe. Julian Beck and Will Sampson faced serious illness and high risk surgery. Saying a curse was responsible can erase the real causes and the real lessons to be learned. So, why won't this story fade away? Because it is, in a way, the perfect horror story, a movie about angry spirits. The rumor of real skeletons in muddy water, a child's famous whisper of they hear, and then a series of sad funerals. The myth is emotionally powerful, even if it's not factually accurate. We are drawn to stories that feel complete. You can look at a curse story in three different ways. Supernatural. The films angered something, and it took its price. A powerful story, but with no supporting evidence. Practical. Hollywood sometimes cut ethical corners, and the consequences can be brutal and random. This lens helps explain the skeleton rumor and some of the on-set anecdotes. Statistical. A cluster of tragic events in a small, famous group of people look mystical, but simply falls within natural patterns of chance. You can choose your own way of seeing it. Just remember not to let the myth turn real people into symbols. In the end, what truly haunts the poltergeist story isn't a curse. It's the way we allow compelling stories to cling to grief and turn it into a form of entertainment. That pool scene will always feel a little colder when you know the rumor about the props. Perhaps that's punishment enough for using bones, if they were used at all. Horror films promise us that there is a kind of order behind chaos. Real life rarely cooperates. If there's a lesson here, it's the same one every myth gives us when we stop being afraid long enough to listen. Respect the dead, tell the truth, and don't make a sad coincidence for fate. What are your thoughts? Was it a curse, a coincidence, or a bit of both? Let us know in the comments below.